we're going to do Satanama. This is what Satanama does. It is so primal that the impact on our psyche is the splitting of an atom. The power of the mantra comes from the fact that it rearranges the subconscious mind at the most elementary level. It has the power to break habits and addictions because it accesses the level of the mind where habits are created. And I have sheets in the lobby. If you did not pick one up before you came in, please pick it up and use this mantra. On the internet, you can find it. If you just bring up Satanama, it'll come up, and you can do it with that, or you can pick up the CD tonight and practice with it. But at this time, with so much going on in the world, and it's kind of like chaotic, and this will help us really start our day with centering our mind. And Sa is the beginning, infinity, the totality of everything that ever was. Ta is life, existence, and creativity that manifests from infinity. Na is change and the transformation of consciousness. Ma is rebirth, regeneration, and resurrection, which allows us to consciously experience the joy of the infinite. So, to calm our mind, you do it for like 10 to 12 minutes. You do the fingers, the first finger with the thumb, then the second and third and fourth. Sa, ta, na, ma. And it will change your life. If you're going through some kind of madness, this will take you out of it. Do it every morning for 10 to 12 minutes, and it will change your life. So we're going to do it now, and the office will be open right after the service. There'll be refreshments. The store will be open. And if you would like to have a name called out on the prayer list, be sure to write it on a piece of paper that's by the box and put it in the box, and it'll be called out after Jack speaks. But now we're going to do Satanama. Don't worry about what you sound out. It's really the energy. And you really want to see the energy coming through your crown and coming and filling your your third eye area, and then just going out. Just let it be your whole head, just in a revolution of cleansing. Okay, here we go. Get a really comfortable position. There's pillows in the front that you can sit on. Sata nama, sata nama, sata nama, sata nama, sata nama, Satanama, 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 Satanama,
There is a spiritual illustration that is sometimes used. I think it originated with a sage named Ruby Nelson. It goes like this. If you had no previous knowledge of seeds and fruits and vegetables and things like that, but you had everything else in life the way it is, and someone showed you a tomato seed, very tiny seed, and told you that inside that seed is a beautiful red fruit with a beautiful green vine, and that it's delicious to eat, you would have severe doubts about that, looking at this tiny seed. How could that be? So when someone says that there is a divine essence, the image and likeness of the creator of the entire universe, lies as potential in your consciousness. And if nurtured, it will grow and grow into a completely different, more beautiful life than you were capable of ever imagining. But along the way now, as we live, we imagine all kinds of things. The mind of man is his own, her own worst enemy a lot of the time. It's not that it isn't a beautiful tool, a wonderful gift to solve certain issues and problems that we run into. But it is woefully inadequate of creating a beautiful, divine life. Dr. William Wright said that sin is being unaware of the cause of your own suffering. And that is also a very true statement. We are unaware of the cause of our own suffering because quite a bit of the suffering we experience comes from a false premise that was given to us upon birth into this world. That false premise is referred to as the original sin or the original error. And then from there is the assumption that somehow or other, with this instrument we call the intellect, we will be able to work out our lives in such a way that we can find happiness and peace, we can find love, we can find understanding and beauty, but that will never happen unless the mind of man and woman is awakened to its divine source. That divine seed has to be opened within us for there to be an awakening to a true definition of life. When we have the true definition of life, then we live free. Then we transcend conflict. We transcend fear. We transcend suffering. It doesn't mean that we have no relationship to the physical world. It just means that we live in a higher, more beautiful, expanded state of awareness in which the body-mind of mankind serves our thinking process, becomes aligned with the refined soul consciousness, this core essence of divinity that exists within each of us, and that it is our calling to finally release and allow it to awaken within us and to become the guiding light of our thoughts and actions. Unless this process is taking place within anyone, there can be no hope of happiness and peace of mind, no hope of true health, and no hope of beauty. Can you imagine, and this is the way it works for us, to look upon people and be able to see past their limited definitions of themselves, and to see the absolute beauty of their struggle. Instead of responding and reacting to their limited definitions of themselves and of life, we see the majesty of their soul attempting to come through to awaken them to true life, and not the mundane life of the world, but the divine life of the essential God, Goddess consciousness that is there to lead us to a life truly worth living. If I was sharing this with you from books that I studied, it would be very, very shallow. Anyone who is still attempting to left brain the ideas of God will only be less capable of transmitting them unless that particular person has applied these truths to himself or herself. Then he is speaking in a very shallow and limited way. That person cannot know the majesty of the indwelling divine being nature. Cannot know it unless he or she has applied the principles that led him to the revelation. I am not just this physical body. I am a divine soul awareness. And as I enter that space of understanding, I'm capable of not only healing my life and bringing harmony to my life, but capable of healing and bringing harmony to everything around me. Just consider how beautiful it is for those that are still struggling in the illusionary definition of life to try to figure it out and work their way in this world of insane thoughts, trying to figure it out and work it out through their intellect, through that initial consciousness that some of the atheists say is the highest consciousness. I'm going to deviate from this talk completely right now because it just seems appropriate. I just spoke about the atheist consciousness. Is there anybody here that still has some doubts that you have a doubt that there is a higher consciousness? Raise your hand. It's okay. If you're here and you're honest, that's beautiful. So at least no one is here that believes or doesn't understand there is a greater intelligence and a greater love of which we are a part. So it is not our particular personal intelligence, not our personal understanding that is going to bring us to the life truly worth living. It is by opening ourselves up. It takes a small bit of surrender from the illusionary idea that I am a separate, objective observer in a world of separate phenomena, and the way I see life and understand it is true, is actually real. In the initial state of consciousness, everybody operates that way. It's flawed because it's not true. See, in that initial state of consciousness, we start with the premise that we are separate from all that we look upon. That premise that I am this separate physical body, and I look about at all these different separate bodies, all these different separate issues and lives and lifestyles and conditions. And those conditions and lifestyles don't seem to have any regard for me, so I have to find my way through life. I have to figure it out. I have to become smart enough or rich enough or powerful enough or popular enough to control the conditions and circumstances in which I find myself. And that's the one way I'm going to be able to find happiness, peace of mind, and a true life. I can't emphasize this enough. You're not punished for traveling that way of life. There's no separate punishment for that. That is the life that we live and should be learning from, that it doesn't play out in harmony, healing, peace. It doesn't. So there's no universal, condemnation that comes down on that. We are beloved. It's like this universe looks upon us as beloved offspring. And its purpose through its masters and the teachings that come down to us is to awaken us to the fact that we are only still inside this seed. We haven't opened it yet. And that as long as we're operating from this limited perspective, we can expect more conflict and more unhappiness, broken relationships, more fear. So, as we go through this, if we're awake in the way we're living, we might finally get to that place where we say, maybe there's something to this whole idea. You know what line used to really irk me in my limited days? I still have some limited days, but not as many as I used to have. Few limited days. But in my very limited days, I used to be irked by the statement from A Course in Miracles that says, when will you realize that only holiness will satisfy you? Because in those days, holiness to me was somebody in a habit, long black robes or something as a nun or some kind of a monk or priest. But true holiness is the consciousness of the presence of God in every person, place, condition, circumstance, everywhere, open and ready to bless. That's wholeness. That's how you look past the seeming inconsistencies and limitations of those people that are still in the world and of the world, and you want to react to them. But the only way we can get to that place of true harmony, healing, and happiness is in the wholeness of the awareness. And that can only happen as we open up and allow this core divine self, we refer to it as the higher self, to come forth in our awareness. So if you're not quite there yet, or you haven't had moments where you've seen past the limitations of the world and seen the actual beauty that is available to everything, even everything that is struggling right now, then you need to participate more in a focused manner on your spiritual practice. Without spiritual practice, that means you don't have the willingness yet to awaken to true life. You're still dabbling in the possibility that, well, it's nice, I went to church and listened to some nice, interesting things, but I'll figure it out. You're not really into your meditation. You're not into the holy pause. Without the holy pause, in this Western society, you're completely doomed to conflict. When I say the holy pause is, for somebody who's on the journey and in their practice, it means when you come to a place where you're feeling a negative response to people, conditions, circumstances, your life, when you're feeling a negative response and you give into it and you want to retaliate in some way, and you're really inside, you're feeling dark, and you're cursing the conditions and circumstances that are challenging you. You see, that's not mastery. Retribution and retaliation are not mastery. Mastery is the ability to stop, to pause, and to know you can actually choose peace. You can choose divine light awareness. It's there, but you have to want it. You have to be willing to have it. And it's not a throwaway relationship. In other words, the kind of relationships that people get into back and forth on the physical human level. In a sense, they're not ever really complete unless both people are into the divine awareness. Operating from the strictly physical idea and definition of life, those relationships are futile. They're what they call love-hate relationships. For some time, we're on this vacation, we have this week together, it's great, wonderful, but even during that week, how can you wear those muddy shoes into the house? Look what you did to the rug that I have to clean. And that's the beginning of it. There's always some problem because you're not awake enough or aware enough. Therefore, this is absolutely true. Can you imagine everything else you'll hear over the next week, month, year from any other source, from the television, from the talking heads, from the rock concerts, from the superstars in movies, everything you'll hear that comes through and out of them will pale in significance to this. If God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge His will. His will does not vacillate, being changeless forever. When you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in God. Yet, God is all, in all. His peace is complete, and you must be included in it. His laws govern you because they govern everything. You cannot exempt yourself from His laws. Although you can disobey them. Yet if you do, and only if you do, you will feel lonely and helpless because you are denying yourself everything. Now, the law of life, the image and likeness, the breath of life. Who beats your heart today? Who's been beating your heart all day today? Boy, if to limit intellectual human mind had to take over that duty, you'd really be stuck. You know? What about the other million processes that take place in the physical body? All that's going on through the blood, all that's going on through the muscles and the nerves and the tissues and the organs. If you had to take that on and remember when to breathe, breathe now, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. How would you ever enjoy that latte at Starbucks? You couldn't. So it's to acknowledge that there is a grand intelligence that has given us life, and given us life to live in a meaningful way, to be awake in life, and finally choose God. There's no force in all of this. God doesn't force anything. God doesn't judge anything. God is divine intelligence and divine love. And God says to all of his, her creations, live in a wakeful manner. Be awake in what you're living. Be awake in the way you think and watch the outcome of your thinking. And you'll become a master in the end. If you're simply awake in your living, at least you won't keep doing the same counterproductive things that you do. Because you know what, I've been here before, I've done this. You know, you keep thinking to yourself, oh, it's going to be different this time. No. You have to say, no, I've been there, done that, I'm finished. I'm going to take this other way. Here's what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to respond in a negative manner. I'm going to bless. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to be at peace. I'm going to be still. I'm going to practice the holy pause. I'm going to choose the light of life as my guiding light. So there it is. If people had talked to me like this when I was 19 years old, I think maybe somebody did. I think there was a teacher that actually did try to convince me that there was more to life than being somewhat a wannabe hoodlum. Yeah. There's probably a couple people along the way. But that's okay. Because life is the teacher. You don't need someone to be telling you. If you're awake, life is teaching you. You did this before. Look at this. Same thing. You're here, you're doing the same thing again. Don't you realize that you hate this kind of work? And the fact is you're not honest with it within yourself. What you're doing is you say you hate the people you work with. But they're not doing anything to you. You just keep choosing this limited kind of work because you think you can get away on this kind of income and it's going to fulfill your life. Whereas if you had let the light of life guide you and open you up, you would find your way into that which the light of life would have you do, and you would find such fulfillment, peace, happiness, prosperity, and joy in doing it. So this has kind of been a long commercial for God. But it's a true commercial. It's not an infomercial. It's a true commercial for God. And to do this, let me say, when it comes to meditation, which is, in a sense, you're withdrawing your mind, your conscious mind, from the thinking of the world. You see, if you let your mind go, all your mind is ever doing anyway is attempting to gain advantage somewhere, somehow, in some situation, condition, some relationship. That's all the mind is doing. So if you become quiet enough, just let the mind quiet down, be still in meditation, and allow yourself just in that. If you just allow yourself in a quiet time to know that you are beloved, regardless of all the limited things that you may have done, still thinking about doing, doesn't even matter. You are beloved because this universe is love expressing. It is love expressing. It's saying to you, you want to join? That's all it's saying. You want to join? Be awake in your living. Don't resist it. Because all we're doing, all the angels are doing, all the masters are doing, all the gods and goddesses are doing, is love expressing. You want to feel it and enjoy it and have the benefits of it, then come aboard. Do your meditation, quiet your mind enough, and allow that refined awareness to come through that says, learn to bless, forgive, let go, and see life from a completely expanded place, which will bring you joy and happiness and peace. You'll stop being a part of your own problems and stop being a part of a lot of the problems in the relationships around you. You will have entered into the divine life expression. By the way, that's all that religion ever was supposed to bring about. Religion went wacko-dacko. Okay? People thought they had to put on fancy crimson robes with ermine collars and big scepters and gold and churches and cathedrals. I guess right now they're learning that that was not the purpose. That was not the calling. But anyway, so, although I would like to have a scepter. If we ever do well enough, it may be one of the things I'll purchase. So we're going to do that now. We're going to withdraw from the thinking of the world. Allow the bowls to enter into and release us from... If you brought anything in here tonight, any thoughts and concerns and worries, you have no reason to really be concerned or worry. In a nanosecond, you can realize you are so much bigger than the personal experience. And by doing that, by feeling the majesty of being divine, you already transcended a lot of the resistance and fear. Let it go. And the more you let it go, the less it'll show up. So as we do our bowls this evening, just relax and feel the okayness of being loved by this universe. And you may want to use this if you don't have a particular meditation technique. When we get to the silence, you may want to use this thought. And you can break it down in whatever way seems appropriate to you. Everything I look upon, everything I see, is only God teaching me. Everything I look upon, everything I see, is only God teaching me.
Tonight we're going to go through the chakras, and I'm going to say a little bit about each one, and then when I strike the bowl, let that sound go to the area, the chakra, and also in the describing of what that chakra represents, you'll find out what issues you are working in, and you'll know which chakra you're working on. This is the first chakra. It's at the base of the spine. It's called the root. All my needs are already provided for. I am safe and I am loved. The second chakra is the lower abdomen. I accept my God-given ability to connect with others with warmth and sensitivity. The third chakra, the solar plexus. I am filled with vitality, trust, and inner security because I am one with God, one with all life. The fourth chakra is the heart area. I am filled with love, kindness, compassion, hope, forgiveness, and peace of mind. The fifth chakra, the throat. I express kindness, truth, wisdom, loyalty, gentleness to everyone I meet. The sixth chakra is the third eye area. I am filled with an intuitive sense. I am confident in myself and connect to my beingness. The seventh chakra is the crown area. I am filled with wisdom and understanding.
let us take a few moments to affirm the healing light for all of those who have been submitted to our prayer list. As Norma calls the name, just feel that divine light awakening, moving into consciousness of that name.
Marjorie McCurtain, Lynn Harvey, Linda Rebinson and family, Nikki Ward, Lori Garcia's family, Dara Rotano, Nola Toby, Kimberly Malone and daughter, Phyllis Herman and family, Nancy Clune, Bonnie McDonald, Kimberly Bremen, Annie Raines, Dawn and Don Lee, Jennifer W., Tim Brown, Sandy Spahn, Kimberly Malone, the Fisher family, Jack Grunman, Steve Webb, Tim, Lori Park, Gail Wagner, Brandy, Lynn Harvey, Bren, Joan and Mike Martin, Lori and Craig Martin, Tate and Jack Martell, Lori and Craig Martell, Michael, Dan, Farouk, Ann Courtney, Gabe, Beaver and okay, Dell and family, Dan James, Lila, Kayla Rose, Ed and Dory, the rainforest, water, air, earth, all life, the United States government. And if you'd like to call out a name at this time, you can.
T. Matthew, S. Casey, S. Daniel, Lee, Ever, Tyler, Katya.
We see this healing light surrounding the prayer box. And all the people whose names have been submitted, we see them healed physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let us take a moment now to realize that this divine nature, this divine light of creation exists in every atom of creation, can come forth and bring about a more expanded awareness and expression of everyone. And so now we see this light performing beautifully in the consciousness of all the people sharing the Boulder community with us. And this divine awareness coming forth in the consciousness and expression of all the people in the state of Colorado. And so it expands and expands, and everyone in these United States is inspired to recognize their divinity. And it expands throughout the world as people awaken from the limited shadows of fear and doubt found in the illusionary interpretation of life, they awaken to the realization of the majesty and the beauty of the presence of God in every person, in every place, in every creature, in everything, in all the waterways, the oceans, the marine life, everything returning to that beautiful expression of divine light, peace, love, and healing. We know this as we pray, holding the planet in this light. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. As we take our offerings in our hands, let's recognize the divine law of life and giving we receive, and take this affirmation from the heart of God to the hearts of all people. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I give and all that I receive because I give. Together, please. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I give and all that I receive because I give.
I am in your sacred light. I feel the radiance of all life. My heart is open, oh Lord, let me know your will. I am in your sacred light. I feel the radiance of all life. My heart is open, oh Lord, let me know your will. Let me know your will. Let me know your will.
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate this tithe to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen.
This coming Saturday at 5 p.m. there is another service that goes on. We've added